Hi guys, and today we finally got a new Minecraft version, and that's 1.19.4. We got many new features added in this version, so let's cover them. First we will start with big changes. Then we will talk about experimental changes like new features. And then the small changes. Let's start. Vexes now use a separate charging animation when empty-handed. Armor stands now preserve custom names when placed and broken. Enchantment glint on items and armor is now more subtle. Updated the create new world screen. Interacting with armor or elytra items in hand will now swap them with equipped gear. The enchantment glint has been further tweaked to be slower and less visible, but also have more contrast in some intervals. Jukeboxes now emit a note particle above them while playing a music disc to match bedrock. Jukeboxes have changed to be at parity with bedrock. Horse breeding has been updated. Updated the realm screen to be more in line with the single player and multiplayer screens. The enchantment glint for items in the inventory has been made more visible. The default value of the glint strength setting has been reduced to 75%. Potions no longer have an enchantment glint due to it obscuring the color of the potion contents. Added a notification system for realms to tell you about important information about your realm. Potions have had their colors adjusted to make them more distinguishable from each other. Let's go to the experimental features. They can be only obtainable by adding a data pack. So let's start. First thing added was a changed netherite upgrade system that came with a redesign to the smithing table. That also added armor trims. Armor trims are decorations for your armor with all ores and crystals. There are 12 of them, and one of them is the netherite upgrade that is found in bastions. Then we have coast armor trim that is found in shipwrecks. Then the dune armor trim in desert pyramids. Then the eye armor trim in strongholds. Then the rib armor trim in nether fortresses. The sentry armor trim in pillager outposts. The snout armor trim found in bastions. The spire armor trim found in end cities. The tide armor trim that you can get by killing elder guardians. Vex armor trim in woodland mansions. Wart armor trim in ancient cities. And last wild armor trim in jungle temples. Armor trims can be used on all types of armors. You can even use the same or as your armor as a trim. There are thousands of combinations with this. Okay, so the next experimental feature is the sniffer. You can only get it in survival by spawning it. It can also start sniffing for the torch flower seed. When you plant it, then it will go with 3 stages to become the torch flower. Now let's go to the next big experimental thing. It's the cherry biome. It comes with a wood set and a biome. Next thing is archaeology. You can make brushes to find suspicious and in wells and temples. You can get pottery shards to make pots. So let's go to more official changes. Let's start with all the versions. Accessibility changes. Added an accessibility onboarding screen for players launching the game for the first time. Added arrow key navigation. The resource pack screen is now keyboard navigable. Auto jump is now off by default. Added a new notification display time accessibility option changes how long notifications such as unlocked recipes, advancements, subtitles and selected item names are visible for. Arrow key navigation. Menu screens can now be navigated by using the arrow keys. When navigating with arrow keys, sliders need to be activated by pressing enter or space to start changing the value. Technical changes. The data pack version is now 11. Added a network protocol feature for forcing bundle of packets to be processed within same client tick. Added fallback fields to translate chat components. Out-of-bound arguments in translate formats are no longer silently ignored. The clone command now supports cloning to and from different dimensions. A new string source is now available for the data modify command. New execute subcommands. Network protocol. Clients now reset their secure chat session state when receiving the login packet. Packet bundles. Added new delimiter packet to client-bound game protocol. All packets between 2 delimiters are guaranteed to be processed within the same tick. For security reasons, this feature is not supported in server-bound direction. Block behavior. Fire burns out faster in certain biomes, and this is now controlled by the increased _fire_burnout biome tag. Mob spawning. The only _ allows _snow and _gold rabbits biome tag has been renamed to spawns _gold rabbits to match its behavior. White rabbit variants are now controlled by the spawns _white rabbits biome tag. Fox variants are now controlled by the spawns _snow foxes biome tag. Mob behavior. Snow golems melting in warm biomes is now controlled by the snow _golem melts biome tag. Commands. Clone. The clone command now supports specifying the source and target dimensions. New syntax. Clone, from, to. Parameters. Source dimension. It of dimension to clone from. Target dimension. It of dimension to clone to. Data. New source available. String, path, start, end, reads a value as text, resulting in a string value. New arguments. Start, index of first character to include at the start of the string. End, index of the first character to exclude at the end of the string. Execute if vertical bar unless. New conditions available for the execute if vertical bar unless subcommand. Execute if vertical bar unless loaded. Checks if the position given is fully loaded, in regard to both blocks and entities. Execute if vertical bar unless dimension. Checks if the execution is in a matching dimension. Parameters: pos, block position to check. Dimension, a dimension id. Execute on. New execute subcommand for selecting entities based on relation to the current executing entity. Execute on relations. Vehicle, entity that the executing entity is riding. Passengers, all entities directly riding the executing entity, no sub-passengers. Controller, entity that is controlling the executing entity, for example, first passenger in a boat. Owner, owner of the executing entity, if it is a tameable animal, like cats, wolves or parrots. Leasher, entity leading the executing entity with a leash, might be a leash not in case of being attached to a fence. Target, attack target for the executing entity. Attacker, last entity that damaged the executing entity in the previous 5 seconds. If the relation is not applicable to the executing entity or there are no entities matching it, select a return 0 elements. Title. All time arguments to title times are now time durations and work with T, S and D suffixes. Weather. The duration of the weather change now matches the game's regular weather cycle if not specified. The duration parameter is now a time duration in ticks and works with T, S and D suffixes. To retain existing functionality, you need to add an S suffix to pre-existing commands. Ride. New command to allow entities to start or stop riding other entities. Syntax. Ride mount. Makes a single target mount a single vehicle. The command will fail if vehicle is a player. The target is already riding a vehicle. Target and vehicle are the same entity. Vehicle is already a passenger, direct or indirect, of the target. Ride dismount. Dismounts target from any vehicle it is riding. Fails if the target is not riding anything. We also have a game rule change. Added command modification block limit, controlling the maximum number of blocks changed in one execution of clone, fill and fill biome. Changes for chat components. Translation fallback. Added an optional fallback field to translate text components. The new field is a string that will be used in place of translation if it is missing. If fallback is missing, the old behavior, i.e. using the key itself as the translation, is preserved. Let's go to the next snapshot changes. Technical changes. Added a new type of Atlas configuration source, palette_permutations. Armor stands now preserve custom names when placed and broken. A new registry trim_ pattern has been added for the armor trim system. A new recipe serializer smithing_transform has been added for the updated netherite upgrade recipe. A new recipe serializer smithing_trim has been added for the new armor trim recipe. The smithing table temporarily has 2 menu types. Old menu without the smithing template slot has been renamed to legacy_smithing. Will be removed when the armor trim feature stops being an experimental feature. New menu with a smithing template slot was added called smithing. Added new flag, value 128, to hide flags NBT field for hiding armor trim item tooltips. Paletted permutations. Paletted_permutations is a new type of Atlas configuration source used to dynamically generate new textures in memory based on a set of color palettes. Color palettes allow you to swap out the colors of a texture without having to supply all files for the variants of a texture in a resource pack. This is useful for things like armor trims, where you want to be able to change the color of parts of the armor without having to create a new texture for each color. The paletted_permutation source has a set of required parameters. Textures, a list of namespace locations of base textures. These textures will be used to generate variants of them that have been modified by color palettes. Palette_key, a namespace location of a color palette key file. A color palette key is used to define the set of key pixel colors we want to swap out with the color palettes defined below. Permutations, a map of permutations from suffix to a namespace location of a color palette file. The suffix is appended at the beginning to the resource location of the output variant textures, with a character separating the suffix and the base texture name. The color palette is a texture file with a set of pixels that are used for replacing pixels that match the color palette key in each base texture. The number of pixels in each color palette must be the same as that of the palette_key defined for this source. Key matching is done by comparing the RGB values of each pixel in the palette_key to the RGB values of each pixel in the color palette. Alpha channel is ignored for key matching, but in the resulting texture the alpha channel is multiplied with the color palette's alpha channel. Pixels that do not match the palette_key are copied over to the resulting texture as is. After defining a paletted_permutation source, you can then reference those namespaced output textures and other resources in your resource pack. Trim patterns and materials. Trim patterns and materials for armor are defined by the server through the trim_pattern and trim_material registry respectively. As a result, new trim patterns and materials can be added via data packs. These are synchronized to clients when they join the server. However, clients must have an accompanying resource pack to see those registered trim patterns and materials. The paths to these textures are inferred based on the file name of the pattern JSON, and we'll try to find the textures within the same namespace as the trim pattern's name field. The following data is defined by a trim pattern, asset underscore, which is a namespace used to infer texture locations and localization. Template underscore item, which is the id of the smithing template item used to apply the trim pattern. Description, which is a text component used for displaying the pattern name of an armor trim when hovering an armor item stack. The following data is defined by a trim material, asset underscore name, which is a string used as a suffix for armor trim texture locations. Ingredient, which is the id of the ingredient item used to apply the trim material. Item underscore model underscore index, which is a float which defines the item model override each armor item model should target to change their visuals for this material. Incompatible underscore armor underscore material, which is an optional id of the armor material this trim material cannot be applied to. Description, which is a text component used for displaying the material name of an armor trim when hovering an armor item stack. The style defined in this description is applied to the armor trim pattern description as well. Commands. New relation available for execute on. Origin. Shooter, if the executing entity is a projectile, like arrow, fireball, trident, firework, thrown potion, etc. Thrower, if the executing entity is an item. Source of effect, if the executing entity is an area effect cloud. Igniter, if the executing entity is a primed TNT. Summoner, if the executing entity is evoker fangs or a vex. Accessibility changes. Changed how tooltips in the menu UI are positioned so buttons are still readable. Added 2 new options in the accessibility menu for adjusting the speed and transparency of enchantment glints. Updated create new world screen. The screen is now organized into 3 tabs. The game tab allows to set the world name, gamma mode, difficulty and whether to allow cheats. The world tab allows to set the world type and seed, and to toggle the generation of structures and the bonus chest. The more tab provides access to the game rules and data pack selection screen. Remove the import settings button and the corresponding export settings button in the edit world screen. Technical changes. Trim patterns and materials. The following data is now also defined by a trim material. Override underscore armor underscore materials, which is an optional map of armor material to override color palette. Map key is the armor material that this trim material wants to override with a different color palette. Map value is the name of the color palette that will be used when this trim material is applied to an armor piece with the corresponding armor material. The following data is no longer defined by a trim material. Incompatible underscore armor underscore material. Command changes. Effect. Infinite is now a valid option for effect durations. Infinite effect durations show up as infinity in the player inventory view. That's it for this snapshot. Let's go to the next one. Let me show you the clip from my older episode. Board by pressing Ctrl plus Tab and Ctrl plus Shift plus Tab. Specific tabs can also be navigated to by pressing Ctrl plus Tab number. For example, Ctrl plus 2 navigates to the second tab. Added a screen to easily enable/disable experimental features. The screen can always be found under the More tab. In snapshots, a shortcut button can be found under the Game tab. Creative menu changes. Added painting variants to the creative menu. Paintings with predefined variants will now display author and title and description when hovered over. Technical changes. Added display entities for flexible display of items, blocks and text. Added a damage command for applying damage to entities. Added PID file argument to dedicated server command line for printing process to file. Added the following game events. Entity underscore dismount with a vibration frequency of 6. Entity underscore mount with a vibration frequency of 7. Added a group of entities to display items, blocks and text. Added execute summon to allow customization of a newly spawned entity. Display entities changes. 3 new entities have been added for flexible display of items, blocks and text. Those entities, similarly to markers, don't tick and have no collisions or physics. Models render at entity position, with normal rotation around X and Y axis, so it can be controlled by teleport commands, but also with additional arbitrary model transform. Common data types. Tag contents for those entities include some new data types with complex structure. Any form can be used for modifying data, but only one form is used for saving. Rotation. Quaternion form, used for saving, array of 4 numbers, describing components, X, Y, Z, W. Axis angle form, object with following fields, axis, 3D vector, angle, in radians. Transformation, arbitrary affine transform. Matrix form, array of 16 numbers, describing row major matrix. Decomposed form, used for saving, object with following fields, translation, 3D vector. Left underscore rotation, right underscore rotation, rotation. Scale, 3D vector. Transforms are composed in order translation, left underscore rotation, scale, right underscore rotation. Interpolation. Some properties of display entities can be interpolated. That means that clients will see gradual changes over time instead of instantaneous jumps. Display entities keep track of current and previous values of interpolated values. All properties marked as interpolated are part of a single interpolation set. Any update to interpolated property will cause all values of interpolation set to be saved as current and quad. Data command executions that do not change the value of property, even if it's present in NVT, do not count as updates. Updates are synchronized to clients at most once per tick, so multiple updates within command will still count as a single update. Previous current values are saved as previous and quad. If interpolation is enabled, the entity will transition between previous and current values over time. Start of interpolation, entity fully in previous state, is defined by field interpolation _start, game time, in ticks. Set to -1 to load current game time instead. End of interpolation, entity fully in current state, is defined as interpolation _start plus interpolation _duration, in ticks. Common properties. Every entity in a family has the following fields. Transformation applied to the model, after normal entity orientation. Defaults to identity. Interpolated billboard, option to control if entity should pivot to face player when rendered. Fixed, no rotation, default. Vertical, entity can pivot around vertical axis. Horizontal, entity can pivot around horizontal axis. Center, entity can pivot around center point. Brightness, if present, overrides light values used for rendering. Omitted by default, which means rendering uses values from entity position. Object has two fields. Sky, value of skylight, 0, 15. Block, value of block light, 0, 15. View _range, maximum view range of this entity. Actual distance depends on client-side render distance and entity distance scaling. Default value 1.0, roughly the same as Fireball. Shadow _radius, size of shadow. Defaults to 0, no shadow. Interpolated. Shadow _strength, strength of the shadow. Controls the opacity of the shadow as a function of distance to block below. Defaults to 1. Interpolated. Width, height, describe size of culling bounding box. Bounding box spans vertically y to y plus height and horizontally width/2 in all directions from entity position. If either field is set to 0, culling is disabled. Both default to 0. Glow _color _override, override glow border color. Defaults to 0, use team color. Item display, displays a single item stack. Stack can be changed with commands by setting slot inventory.0 fields. Item stack to display. Same format as in inventory. Example, id, Minecraft dirt, count, 1. Item _display, describes item model transform applied to item, as defined in display section in model JSON. Values, none, default, third person _left hand, third person _right hand, first person _left hand, first person _right hand, head, GUI, ground, fixed. Block _display, displays a block state, does not display block entities, even if they would normally be created on block placement, like chest. Fields, block _state, block state to display. Same format as item held by Enderman. Example, name, Minecraft dirt and quad. Text display, displays a text component. Fields, text to display. Components are resolved with the context of the display entity. Line _width, line width used to split lines. Note, new line can be also added with \n characters. Defaults to 200. Text _opacity, opacity, alpha component, of rendered text, defaults to 255. Interpolated. Background, color of background, includes alpha channel, defaults to 0 by 40 million. Interpolated. Default _background, if true, rendering uses default text background color, same as in chat. Defaults to false. Shadow, should text be displayed with shadow, defaults to false. C _through, should text be visible through blocks, defaults to false. Alignment, how text should be aligned. Values, center, default, left, right. Note, text display backgrounds use new shader types rendertype _text _background and rendertype _text _background _c _through. Damage types. Damage types are a new registry that can be extended through data packs. A damage type determines how damage is handled by the game. This includes which attributes the damage has as well as which death message is used when an entity dies due to that type of damage. Example, exhaustion, 0.1. Message _id, arrow and quad. Scaling, when caused by living non player, fields, message id. The message id used for deaths caused by this damage type will be combined with other string fragments to form a translation key. Exhaustion, the amount of hunger exhaustion caused by this damage type. Scaling, whether this damage type scales with difficulty levels. Possible values, Never, damage is always the same. Always, damage always scales with difficulty. When caused by living non player, damage scales with difficulty if it was caused by a living entity who is not a player. Effects, optional field controlling how damage manifests when inflicted on players. Possible values, hurt, default, the default hurt sound. Thorns hurt sound. Drowning sound. Burning, a single tick of burning sound. Poking, berry bush poke sound. Freezing, freeze tick sound. Death message type, optional field that controls if special death message variants are used. Possible values, default, no special death message logic is applied. Fall variants, show a variant of fall damage death instead of a regular death message. For example, death.fell.assist.item. Intentional game design, show the intentional game design message instead of a regular death message. Damage type tags control many aspects of how damage from different sources are interpreted. Commands, damage, new command to apply damage to entities. Syntax, damage target amount, damage type, at location, damage target amount, damage type, by entity, from cause. Parameters, target, the entity to damage. Amount of damage to inflict. Damage type, the type of damage to inflict. This determines how the damage affects the entity as well as which death message is displayed. Entity, the entity inflicting the damage. Cause, the cause of the damage, in the case of indirect damage. Example, when shot by an arrow, the entity is the arrow projectile while cause might be a skeleton. Location, the location the damage originated at, when no entity caused the damage. For instance, location might represent the location of a bed exploding in the nether. Execute summon, new execute subcommand for summoning new entity and binding context, at S, to it. Meant to simplify entity setup and reduce need for raw NBT editing. Execute summon entity id. Predicates, damage type predicates. The following fields have been removed from damage type predicates: is projectile, is explosion, bypasses armor, bypasses invulnerability, bypasses magic, is fire, is magic, is lightning. A new tags array has been added. Each entry has two fields: id, the ID of a damage type tag; expected, whether the damage is expected to have or not have the tag for the predicate to match. Game rules, added do vines spread game rule, determining if vines will spread to nearby blocks. Let's go to the next snapshot, and I recorded it before too, so let me show you the episode. Let's show them on screen so you can watch this gameplay. Let's say them and talk about them more later. Jukeboxes have changed to be at parity with Bedrock. Horse breeding has been updated the realm screen to be more in line with the single player and multiplayer screens. Recipe unlocking, the crafting table recipe is unlocked immediately on creating a new world. The crossbow recipe is no longer unlocked by sticks. The soul campfire recipe is no longer unlocked by sticks. Jukebox changes. While playing a music disc, it will emit a redstone signal of 15. Droppers and hoppers can now interact with it. Horse changes. When breeding horses and the like, the baby's speed, jump height and health are no longer biased toward the average. This change is intended to make horse breeding a viable way of getting great horses, if a player starts with good parents and puts in enough time and golden carrots. Some technical changes. The vanilla resource pack n_s language file is now sorted alphanumerically by key. A new recipe serializer crafting_decorated_pot has been added for the new decorated pot recipe. Added show_notification field to recipes. Accepts a boolean which determines if a notification is shown when unlocking this recipe. Defaults to true if isn't specified. Interaction entities. New type of entity that records attacks, left clicks, and interactions, right clicks and quad. Interactions are invisible and of a custom size. Fields. Width of the entity's bounding box, default 1. Height of the entity's bounding box, default 1. Attack, records the last attack action on the entity. Interaction, records the last interaction action on the entity. Response, boolean specifying if interacting should trigger a response, arm swing, sound effects, etc. Default false. Action format, when an action is stored, it always has two fields: player, the UUID, in standard integer array format, of the player performing the action. Timestamp, the timestamp of the game tick when the event happened, stored as a long, advancement triggers. Interacting with an interaction entity triggers. Player_interacted_ with entity. Attacking an interaction entity triggers. Player_hurt_ entity. Execute on with interactions. The interaction entity targets the player who last interacted with it. That makes the following possible. Execute on attacker. Execute is the last player who attacked the entity. Execute on target. Execute is the last player who interacted with the entity. Fixed bugs in snapshot 23W07A. Here are the bugs that got fixed. Horse breeding never exceeds egg/spawn horse at. Let's go to the 1.19.4 pre-release 1. Added a built-in resource pack that enhances the contrast of UI elements. The resource pack can be enabled in the accessibility options screen or manually in the resource pack screen. This is only available in the menus for now, but we'll be looking to bring this to gameplay UIs in the future as well. Updated Create New World screen. The appearance of the tab bar in the Create New World screen has been updated. Tabs now have unique visuals instead of being traditional buttons. The tabs now align to the center of the screen. The content has been aligned to the top of the screen. Technical changes. The resource pack version is now 13. Change the following game events. Item_interact_finish now has a vibration frequency of 2 instead of 14. New damage type tag, bypasses_cooldown. Damage types with this tag bypass the regular invincibility time after taking damage. New entity type tag, fall_damage_immune. Entity types with this tag do not take fall damage. Resource pack format. The enchantment glint now has 2 separate texture files, enchanted_glint_entity.png and enchanted_glint_item.png. Command changes. Execute positioned over. New execute subcommand for finding positions on top of a height map. Changes the height of the execution position to be on top of the given height map. Syntax. Execute positioned over height maps. A height map records the highest position in a column of blocks according to some criteria. Available options. World_surface. Any non-air block. Motion_blocking. Any motion blocking material, for example ignores flowers and grass. Motion_blocking_no_leaves. Any non-leaf motion blocking material. Ocean_floor. Any non-fluid motion blocking material. Let's go to pre-release 2. Potions have had their colors adjusted to make them more distinguishable from each other. Some potions now have custom colors to look better. Only mobs in the dismounts_underwater entity tag will now force the rider to dismount when underwater. And that's everything added in this time. Soon we will get more big versions, so stay tuned for more. Bye.